Welcome back to the Business Tech FinTech Conference. Remember your ABCs, stage 6 load shedding, always be charging, and always be curious. Now, my curiosity has certainly been sparked by this whole conversation we've been having around FinTech and its maturity and things like banking as a service, and the interesting implications of the emergence of BaaS, which has got different connotations in different contexts, is that it enables specialization. You can have the regulated banks, the grey shoes focusing on compliance and risk management. That's the stuff they really good at. Then you get the fintechs, and the infrastructure providers can focus on rebuilding different parts of that bank tech stack. And then you've got customer facing brands, and they can focus on acquiring and serving financial services customers. It all sounds ideal, but you chat to a guy like Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, and he was asked about fintechs recently and whether or not they're rivals or allies. And he was very guarded in his response, effectively saying that it's going to be a slugfest still, and we'll see who wins. Well, I'm not sure I'm 100% behind that. Michael Jordaan is the founder of Bank Zero, co-founder of Bank Zero, and former golden boy at FNB. So he's been on both sides here. Michael, welcome. There's no doubt that the South African fintech space is in a great place. It's grown tremendously over the last few years. Are fintechs rivals or allies to the incumbents?
Well, clearly they're both. You get some of the fintechs that will, over time, take them on directly, and you'll get others that actually reduce the risk by partnering them. I think one of the lines that has become famous in the space is to say the winners will be determined by the following. Either the incumbents are going to get innovation, or the innovators are going to get distribution. So that's the battle. Do the old guys going to get innovation faster than the new guys get distribution?
Yeah, that speaks to the different skills that they bring. But if you look at the growth of fintechs, it's actually amazing how we seem to punch above our weight. We've got a lot of fintechs going globally, raising funds from global LPs. Why do you believe this has been the case over the last few years?
South Africans like technology. We are a nation that quickly adapts technology in general, and we like it if there's a solution that makes our life easier, if we can make a plan. It's in our nature. And then there are two demographic aspects that you could say about South Africa. The one is that there's a very price competitive market, consumers that are under pressure. So anything that brings a solution that is less costly has a likelihood of success. And the other segment of South Africa is the one where it's less about price, but more about convenience, which obviously technology can also answer to. And if you innovate on both those components, and particularly if they can overlap, so you bring to market a product that is cheaper, but also more convenient than the existing way of doing things, South Africans have a way of responding to that very well.
Yeah, and I just think in my personal life, the experience of purchasing Forex to go overseas, and how that has changed from the old days of travelers' checks, and how quickly it is to onboard someone nowadays. Now, which areas of the fintech space have surprised you by just how quickly they've grown locally?
Well, the one you can call it a fintech is Rain. It's a startup that I'm involved in that sells data and data is sold on an abundant basis, so it's unlimited, but it's also sold online. So it doesn't have any stores in the country. People simply go online and they buy their SIM card, gets delivered to their house. And this is their only form of distribution. So for a mobile network to sell their services online only, that has been remarkable. Obviously, it cuts a lot of intermediary costs and therefore makes data costs far more affordable. And that's something South Africans are very attuned to and sensitive about. The other one would be investing. I'm thinking here particularly of easy equities. South Africans generally are not a nation of savers. We like to borrow. So if there had been a fintech that did online lending and did very well, that wouldn't have been surprising. But it surprises me that a fintech like easy equities can have over 1 million customers that save, that invest, that want to grow their wealth, that look after their investments online. I think that is a very, very positive development for South Africa.
Yeah, nod to Charles Savage and the rest of the team there. I think they've done a fantastic job of enabling the innate desire of South Africans to go out and have a go. I think South Africans, we like sport, we like taking a punch on things, but it's always been a little bit too difficult, I think, to invest for the ordinary South African on the street. Now, that's an example of nibbling away at those friction points to make it just a more seamless, easy experience. And I really wish they'd add some RSA retail savings bonds, because they're really good value in those at the moment. But in which areas of the fintech industry do you believe that we are lagging behind the rest of the world? Because we clearly can't be superstars in all of them.
Michael, we are significantly, materially lagging behind in most government services. So anyone who's recently had to go to Home Affairs for, let's say, a passport renewal will know what I'm talking about. I mean, these are terrible queues. And even if you do what you can electronically, submit everything electronically, you still waste hours, sometimes days in queues. That really needn't be the case. There are so many government services that can be automated, whether it's driver's licenses, whether it's license discs, COVID vaccination wallets, etc. I mean, even take the driver's license discs on your car. And in the past, we were even reminded to renew these via SMS. That reminder has even disappeared. But this could be done via debit order. It could even be a QR code that you permanently affix to your car, and the cop could just scan it to see that you've paid your debit order. So there's huge, huge room for further automation in the government sector. But it's not just government. I mean, if I had to point a finger somewhere in the private sector, I would say Forex. Making payments abroad or receiving payments from abroad, still quite complex, still quite cumbersome, and certainly far too expensive.
Yeah, far too expensive. And I just, look at the world of remittance. And there was a World Bank study looking at the average cost for a Tanzanian expat to remit what they earn to neighboring countries, 25% of what they earn. Absolutely ridiculous. And even for those high net worth, well-heeled travelers, I just think the whole experience is screaming out for a fintech to come and say, here's an app, this makes it easy, plain and simple, transfer the funds, get me the best rate, do all of it for me. On the government side, I guess a lot of that is still being held back potentially by ideology. But I hear what you're saying on the passport front. I had to renew it recently, and even the electronic experience, the screen hangs, and then you've got to go back to it, and it's just a nightmare. But what do you see as the hottest trends in the fintech space at the moment? I opened with banking as a service, and this trend of open banking and APIs, that seems to be quite hot at the moment. What do you see as the big ones?
Look, I hate to climb on the bandwagon here, but cloud computing still has so much further to go. I mean, the entire concept of just using your hardware more efficiently, of sharing it, not having it on premises, and not needing kind of all the security and the cost, even the extra expenses of doing it yourself. So startups like Open Networks or Cloudbox are doing very, very well, and so they still have unlimited growth. I think that will just continue. It's a global phenomenon as well. And then the other one is gamification. I mean, there's so much in the fintech space where it's incredibly serious. We generally take ourselves too seriously in financial services, and by gamifying the experience, it's also much better for the consumer. So I think the two standout examples here are probably Discovery's Vitality, which lead you to more wellness. Not just managing the risk of dying, which is a very healthy phenomenon, but also reward you with a whole lot of fun things. And eBucks, which is arguably the best wealth rewards program in South Africa, which does that all across financial services. So gamification and cloud would be two unstoppable trends.
Yeah, and especially in a country like South Africa with our low savings rate as well, and an issue around financial inclusion. If you can provide incentives via gamification, those positive nudges to get us to save more, to get us more interested in our retirement planning. And insurance is not something you roll out of bed and buy. And I think one of the quotes is that the millennial generation is the most underinsured generation on the planet. There has to be big opportunity in all of that. If you look at tech systems, what do you expect is going to be more prominent in the fintech space in the next few years?
So let's just start with the incumbents. There is still massive room for all the large businesses to automate. I mean, I've seen studies that said easily 75% of processes are standard, they can be automated. And clearly the benefit there is a much reduced cost base, and those costs can then either become profits or they can be passed on to consumers in the form of lower prices, which I think is the more likely scenario, particularly if these incumbents are attacked by startups. So just there's a massive road for automation. It may not be the glitzy, sexy part, but it's the inevitable logical thing that is going to happen. When it gets to the kind of the more sexy side of what's going to happen in fintech, clearly cryptocurrencies, even though they are now downtrodden. There's still a lot of potential there. And even central banks will tell you that they are seriously thinking about things like central bank digital currencies. So that'll happen, and it has the potential of changing forex markets. I'm a believer in decentralized finance and also about autonomous organizations. I think it could challenge our existing model of doing business. You mentioned youngsters not being insured. It's completely possible that you could start a DAO and that you program rules for decentralized finance, that it's just a group of friends that insure amongst themselves. You don't even need an insurance company to do things like that anymore. So that is most likely to happen. And then NFTs, NFTs can be seen as a joke by some, others just see it as artworks, but there are very many serious applications of NFTs where they actually serve as proof of ownership. Now, it can be a document, it can be a birth certificate or a passport or an ID or title to a property. So NFTs may yet become the most exciting application of blockchains yet.
Yeah, I certainly think here what you can do in the property sector using NFTs and to speed up transactions that generally take weeks, if not months. Why should they? They really shouldn't. If you have a digital record, conveyancing really shouldn't be this long drawn out process. Now, it was said at a recent conference in Detroit by Ranjit Saraj, president of Choice Financial, that people need banking, not banks. It's a great quote. And it's so true. And I know Bank Zero is really approaching the market with that kind of mindset. You're one of South Africa's top innovators in the financial services space. How is the bank progressing in terms of its plans this year?
Thanks, Michael. It's very exciting for us. It's progressing slowly but solidly. So we haven't aggressively started advertising yet. We're still making sure that the entire product set is fine-tuned. We're listening to our customers as they give us feedback. But what's encouraging us is that we're getting very active customers. They stay with us. The average balances are higher than we thought. The average transaction sizes are also much higher. And we certainly have hit upon a niche in the business market. So businesses are still the ones that pay much higher fees. And the complexity of managing business accounts is something that no other fintech has yet mastered. So opening accounts for companies online and only taking quite a few minutes to do it is the area where we're seeing the biggest success.
If you look at the benefits of using a digital bank like Bank Zero, both for individuals and businesses here versus a so-called traditional bank account, what are the big benefits that the market is going to slowly start waking up to?
So clearly, the fees is a big thing. As the name suggests, Bank Zero, it's not only about zero monthly fees, as some of the big banks want you to believe, but it's about zero fees for all electronic transactions, for all the debit orders, for all the card swipes. This is a big thing for consumers, but it's an even bigger thing for business banking. And then the next thing is that it's a very useful app with lots and lots of innovations, lots of features that other banks don't offer. I can just give you one. My kids, which are under 16, really struggle to get an app going on their own name at other banks. But they do everything else on their smartphones, whether it's TikTok or Snapchat. So for them, it's great to have their own app. And one of the things they also love is putting their own picture on their card, having a selfie there. And by the way, that's not just for teenagers. That's a whole host of South Africans who then brag about it when they get to Twitter, etc. But all in all, there are lots of new features and functionality. For example, I can send you a proof of payment. You can track where it is in the interbank system. If it's a business payment, I can attach a contract or an invoice to it. People like the fact that you can authorize debit orders before they go off your account, or the night before a debit order goes off, you're warned about it. And so we have about 16 different features that we find very unique in South Africa, and that customers are finding out about one by one.
So why are you not coming to the market just yet and saying, this is an incredible product suite, we're innovating? What are some of the wrinkles that you'd still like ironed out before you go big?
Look, we're live and we're active, but we made a promise to the customers that we said we would listen, and we're paying very, very careful feedback to what it is customers still want. So I think it was the founder of Airbnb that said, if you can make your first 100 customers deliriously happy, the next million is relatively easy. And that's the way in which we approach it. Listening, hearing if there are any bugs or improvements that we can do. And only once, we think we've got the perfect product, will we become more aggressive. So that's a typical startup mentality. It would probably be very different if we were a big corporate or we had the funds of a big corporate. but we'd rather do this one properly.
And in terms of listening to your customers, watching what they're doing, are there any interesting trends that you've noticed amongst your customers?
Yeah, so very intense use of the card when abroad. And that's because the markup, the Forex markup is very, very low, 0 to 0.1%. That's different from the other banks. Customers like attaching the invoices when they make payments across. Customers are particularly happy with the fact that all online transactions need to be authorized because there's a lot of phishing going on. And there's another feature which is called subscription. So if you regularly have a subscription, let's say from Amazon or Netflix, you can just authorize it online once off and it goes off your account. So gradually, as customers find out about these features and start using them, you find that they get hooked. And of course, that's what we like.
And you turn that 100 into a million, and you can do it so quickly with social media and the way word of mouth spreads nowadays. In terms of your plans for the future, and I'm sure you're continuing to build, do you have any immediate plans for the future that you can share with us?
Yeah, the businesses have told us that they need to be able to also pay in cash deposits. So that's something that we're working on. That will happen at retailers. We thought that we could do everything electronic only, but obviously there's a need for cash out, which we have through the entire ATM network, but we need to add cash in. That'll be in the short term. Slightly longer than that, in the medium term, there's been a need for Apple Pay. So even though you can use your chip card and just touch a point of sale device, people seem to like doing that with their smartphones as well. We're also looking to get approval to do cross-border payments. I mentioned before that I think that's an area of finance that's still cumbersome and expensive. We think we can be equally disruptive there, as our name suggests. In the much longer term, Michael, what we'd be looking at is just being a component of the marketplace. We see ourselves as experts in transactional banking. We don't want to do lending ourselves. We don't want to do investments or insurance. So we see partnerships with large brands or other fintech players in the offing.
Right. So you're not going to become the next buy now, pay later sensation on the market or anything like that. You're going to stick to the transactional stuff. That's where your core strengths lie. If an ambitious entrepreneur is watching this, they're here at the FinTech Conference and they want to get involved in FinTech. They maybe just come out of varsity or a boot camp or a startup boot camp. What advice do you have for them? I mean, you've been involved in so many, almost too many to mention. What's that critical ingredient to get you through the valley of death and into something that's really scalable and profitable and successful?
There's something to be said for partnerships, and particularly if partners are open about the problems that they try and solve or would like to have solved, but have difficult doing so themselves. So, for example, I mentioned Home Affairs earlier. There must be so many opportunities to go to a Home Affairs and say, I can make your queues shorter, I can help your payments, or I can upload those documents that you need to upload easier, or I can help you increase your bandwidth. Whatever it is, go to somebody that experiences a problem and help them. I'll give you one example in Bank Zero is we can't open accounts for people that don't have South African IDs, and yet we know that there are millions of them working in South Africa legitimately, but we need access to some electronic database to help us. And so every big player out there will have needs, whether it is e-RECA for a mobile network or electronic point of sale for new startups. So rather than invent something completely new, I would find out where the pain points are, where there are things in South Africa that don't work properly, and try to partner with other brands, because that significantly reduces your startup risk. And after all, you want to be successful. You don't want to fail in your first venture. So why not reduce the risk and still come up with a great fintech solution?
I think it's a great way to approach it. The fintechs can partner with another brand to build that ecosystem where the size of the pie is growing for the third parties in the fintechs as well. It doesn't have to be in direct competition. Michael Jordaan, founder of Bank Zero, co-founder, I should say, of Bank Zero. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us here at the Business Tech FinTech Conference 2022. Take care.
Thank you.
And don't go anywhere, folks. We've got some incredible speakers lined up straight after this.